University professor at Washington State University. I'm located in the county, and today I'm going to talk about, well, the title was Thinking Outside the Box as far as the 21st century, and just the format that we've used and how we've evolved on working with women in ag and how it's changed, and then a little bit about some of the obstacles and some of the good things that have happened as we've gone along. And so that's the plan for the next few minutes of what I'm going to talk about. And so let's see, I gotta get it to move down one. There we go. So a lot of times I show this picture of the Tractorette School at Washington State University in 1942. And it's kind of a precursor of how were women trained and what happened when the men went off to World War II. They brought the women into the campus to teach them how to drive tractors and how to repair tractors, because somebody needed to do the farm work while the men were gone. And so these women actually did replace them, and they took a couple weeks of training on how to run tractors. And at the end of those 3 weeks, then they paraded down the street in Pullman, Washington at Washington State University. And if any of you can ever recall back, depending on your age, when you went to the movies, the movie theater, there was always a newsreel that played. And this newsreel of these women driving the tractors was on from Paramount and MGM that were shown at all the theaters when people went to see a movie. And so an estimated 5 million moviegoers saw these women parading down the street. And this is just one picture that I was able to find in the archives at WSU that portrayed them. So women have been involved for a long time in a variety of different ways. So on this slide, as we've evolved over the years, we've called our program Women, Farms, and Food. And I suppose the nickname for it is Women in Ag, but we've tried to stick with our logo of Women, Farms, and Food. So it covers a gamut of people and what they do. And our mission is we strive to empower women in agriculture to achieve goals and manage risk through education, networking, and technology. And we come back to this mission each time as we think about what we're going to do this next year, what kind of programs that we're going to have. And so that's our guiding force. And so we've spent a lot of time figuring out what women want. And we've done focus groups, we've called people on the phones, we've surveyed them at meetings, and we've evolved back to they want to be close to home where they're going to take their education. They like small group work, they like to talk, and sometimes it's hard to slow them down on the talking so that we can cover the parts that we want, but they want to be able to talk. And they want to hear from women just like them. We've expanded that a little bit so they can hear from women who aren't quite like them, just to get some different ideas. They like networking. They like their conversations to be very focused. And the one thing that we strive for is practical application. And so I use a form at all of our conferences that talks about takeaway messages. And our speakers supply us with takeaway messages that they have incorporated into their presentations. And then women have a form to fill out is what was the takeaway message I heard and how does it apply to me? So they can go home with something. And I always say that sometimes we go to meetings and we say, well, that was nice, now let's go home and get back to work. Well, I like them to take this form home and say, here's what I learned and here's what I'm going to do with it. And then, of course, women also want to hear about successes and failures. What worked for somebody, what didn't work. I don't want to make the same mistake. So if somebody's made that mistake and figured it out, then let's hear about it. And women are very forgiving as far as failures are concerned. And so when you go back to women working in small groups and close to home, I always bring up the conversation with my husband when he goes to a commodity meeting. And I said, well, who did you sit next to? And he tells me, and I said, well, what did you talk about? Well, not much. And I said, well, how many acres do you think so-and-so farms? Or what do you think he got for his crop last year? And he keeps saying, Margaret, we don't talk about things like that as men. We don't ask each other those types of conversations, like how much did you pay for an acre when the new land that you bought, or something like that. But women, are just the opposite. Those conversations that they have, they want to share everything, and which is fine, but you need to allow for that as you program for women, because they do just learn and respond very differently than men do. And so on the left side of the screen of the PowerPoint, you can see how we started and where we are today. So we started back in 2005, and prior to 2005, I was doing work with farm families with risk management, but mostly it was the men that came to the conference, and sometimes a few women came along as well. But as we pedaled different conferences around the state, as we looked at agriculture, horticulture, whatever it was designed for men. So in 2005, we designed for women. So we started with a statewide conference. Everybody came to the center of the state. Then we expanded it to the evening before so that we could get together and get to know each other in a social setting. Then women started to tell us that, golly, I just can't be away from home that long. I'm busy. Who's going to feed? Who's going to take care of my kids? Who's going to take care of my mother-in-law? This sort of thing. And so then we went from there to having conferences in selected regions in the state. So we found 5 or 6 locations, and we had a traveling roadshow with the speakers and went to those places. Then we said, well, we can't keep up with this anymore, because to get speakers to give the same kinds of presentations, we couldn't get them to travel as well. So finally, we went to technology, and we decided to have technology and broadcast throughout the state at locations within our state. At that time, we had a different technology than what we have now. We use Zoom just like we're using today. And so where did we go from there? After we did it with one state for a year or two, then we moved to other states joining us. And so where are we today? We have one day, it's a Saturday. 5 states participate. We're in about 40 locations, and about, on the average, 650 women participate across those 5 states. And so we have certainly transitioned from a one-day conference to what we have now. But there are some bumps in the road that I'm going to talk about just to also give you some ideas. And so as we talked about the technology, is that it was very important that people be hardwired for the internet as we used Zoom. So when we had people who weren't hardwired on a Saturday, everybody's on the internet, it took up all the bandwidth. And so hardwired had to be the protocol. Basically, all that they needed was a laptop, speakers, a projector, and a screen. We wrote all the directions for testing their equipment ahead of time. They practiced, they learned how to zoom in, zoom out, how to put up the questions, all the information that they needed. But to even help that process a little bit more with that technology, because not everybody is technology savvy. And so I built a facilitator's guide, and we had a Zoom conference with all the facilitators across the 5 states. Here's what happens on the day of the event. Here's how you project what you're going to do. And because it was a timed conference, things had to start and end on time. And so if something was starting at 9 o'clock and they had 20 minutes to do it, that at the end of 20 minutes, they need to be ready to move on to the next thing. And we encouraged everybody to have a partner. You know, facilitating a conference like this is difficult at best with one person, and having somebody to help you is wonderful. And I always told them to breathe. You know, we think we've taken all the obstacles out of this, but just be prepared for anything. And every time I start one of these conferences, I think about what could happen. Well, every year it's worked fine. You know, it's turned out fine. And when technology didn't work or there was a bump in the road, it probably went back to the facilitator not taking enough time to practice. And I spent a lot of time practicing with people, and I'm very patient that way. I want them to be very successful. So let's learn how to use the equipment. So what are our keys to success as we work with our programs is what's important to women farmers. Every year we survey women again, they send us ideas. We would look around the country to see what everyone else is doing with women farmers and how do they want to learn. The previous speaker talked about different learning styles. We try to plan according to that and have different learning formats. So we pick them up. Everyone, if they want to be in small groups, we have small groups. If they want to be in a large group, we have a large group. If they want an independent activity, we allow for that as well. One thing to our success is we have a fully engaged planning team from across the state and across a couple different states who get involved with us. We have conference calls and figure out what should it look like. We have commodity involvement to help us recruit, whether it be the wheat growers or the horticultural people or the small farms, whatever it is, they help us with our marketing. And I think we just can't do enough with marketing, because we'll say, well, why didn't this group attend? Why didn't we hear from these folks? And so we always need to improve on our marketing skills. People need to hear about it, and how they hear about it is through a variety of methods that we have to keep working at. So it's successful, but it's constantly going. The other program that we use is Constant Contact, and you've probably heard about this, but we send out messages to everyone who signs up for Constant Contact. So all they have to do is send us their email, and they're on our list, and they'll find out what's happening with the conference at different times during the year. And then because there's a cost involved with this conference, we use a mechanism called brown paper tickets. Everybody has their own system for handling registration. This has been the most successful one for us because we need to register people at 40 different sites and just not at one site. So we need to know where they're going and get their information so we can share that with the site facilitator at those sites. And all of this didn't happen overnight. It took us several years to get this all figured out, but we're slowly getting it all mastered and until another obstacle might come up. So what are our program challenges? Well, in Washington State and the other 4 states, which would be Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, Montana, and Washington, Idaho, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. Those are the 5 states. Agriculture is very different. In Washington State alone, we have women who have cattle ranches and wheat farms, and we have women who grow seed for carrots. So it varies from something very large to something very small. And as we look at that diversity in agriculture and we plan our programs, we need to plan to meet the needs of all of those women who may participate. We don't like it when women go away and say, well, that was only for that small farmer group. That wasn't for us in the larger groups. And so we work with that. When we do our program, we go across 3 time zones. So the people in Alaska are getting up very early. The people in Montana are almost ready for lunch. And so we have to be cognizant of that. The other thing is travel for people to get to a site. And so when we look at sites, we try to find sites where women aren't any further than an hour or an hour and a half to be able to go to a site. And then of course we always have weather. In the Seattle area, farmers markets are open sometimes nearly year round. In Montana, it's hard to get out because they may be snowbound. And one thing that we do with our program is we've designed it so people come together to participate. We have not had a provision for someone to do the program at home. You know, we're going to do some different things next year in addition to our conference, but we want people to come together. Program challenges are also publicity. I write a lot of the publicity that I send out to the different facilitators and the different sites. They need to localize it. Local facilitators, not every place do we have extension people who can or are willing to be local facilitators. We have women farmers who are facilitators. We have agency people. We have any of our partners be facilitators. It just requires that you feel comfortable standing up in front of a group, and we go over everything that you need to do. One thing that has probably gotten to be a monster for us is shipping materials. And so we ship the materials to each site. We joke about our program is kind of like a program in a box, that if you're going to be a site facilitator in Timbuktu, we're going to ship you the information, the handouts. And the question comes up, well, why can't they just make their own handouts? Well, not everybody is in an extension office or an agency that can make the copies, can afford to make the copies, and make them the way I would like them to look. I like them to be in color. I like them to look nice and have some quality to them. And so by doing so, we make them ourselves. We need to ship them. So we spend a lot of money on postage that we need to budget for. And then we have to also allow for the time frame that it takes to get to Fairbanks, Alaska, or to get to Montana, which also can be something we really need to think about. I think, I don't know if it's a female trait or if it's also male, but I always joke about, you either need to have food or pesticide credits to bring people up. And with this program, we go with the food. And so we provide a light breakfast and we provide a lunch. And that's a job of a facilitator to take care of those things. And then we're constantly looking for financial support, as everyone does in their programs, and gleaning from wherever we can to help us support our program. So, you know, how do we measure success? And when I say, can I think differently? Can I think differently in terms of how to present a program? And for those of you that are thinking about doing programs or doing them already, can I lead differently? Because it's a different type of group that you're leading, and the methods for leading or facilitating have to be different to keep people's interests. There's definitely a time commitment. There's a large time commitment on my part as being the main person, but there's also the time commitment for somebody being a facilitator. And how good are you at engaging people and getting them involved and making sure they come to the conference? So as I measure success, I also talk about, did I talk to the right people? Did I get the right people involved? Did I plan for enough training? Enough training can go both ways, training for the facilitators, and then did I plan for enough content for the program? And generally, we have more content than we can cover. And what type of evaluation do we do? How do we engage the right people? The right people as far as speakers. And so when we look for speakers for our conference, we have a speaker team. We find people that we think we might be interested in, and we spend time interviewing keynote speakers. We ask them what they do, if they feel comfortable presenting through a media like this. Excuse me. And we listen to them on YouTube to see what they sound like. We like to provide feedback to our clientele. We also like them to provide feedback to us. And we're also looking for some personal satisfaction for those people that get involved with us. If you're listening to this and you're planning to do something like this and have a conference for women involved in ag, thinking about what does it take for personal satisfaction for you to be involved. And so in this short, little over 15 minutes that Mary asked me to provide this information is looking at, you know, how did we evolve? where did we get to where we are today, and what have we used as their standard. And so if anyone has any questions out there, of course, I'm open to answering them. I can't see the chat box, but maybe you can tell me if there's any there.
All right, thank you very much. And we'll be shifting over speakers here, but just, and Margaret, if you would stick around until after, there'll probably be some more questions.
I will.
But the first one is, do you charge a registration fee, and how much?
We do charge a registration fee, and we charge $30.
Okay.
And that includes all their materials and everything they get for the day, plus their food.
Great. And have you raised that over time, or?
We went from 25 to 30 this last year. No one has seemed to have an issue. Some organizations have provided scholarships for an aspiring farmer or a student, so we do that. Some people will pay not only their own registration, but pay for an aspiring farmer also.
Okay. And I'm guessing you do not provide any kind of support to the facilitators, that's a volunteer assignment?
Typically, we don't supply any support to them. They're doing it because they like the program. They want to be involved with the program. It enhances what they have. But as far as financial support to them, sometimes we've been able to do something with media for them, but typically those responsibilities rest with the site facilitator.
Great. Okay, well, I'm gonna have Jenny go ahead and share her screen now, and
okay, I'll stop sharing,
and then we will get back to you with more questions.
Okay.
And I just want to double check my audio, Mary. Are you hearing me okay? Better?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Great.
You guys are such pros at this. I don't know why I was losing sleep. Really.
With technology, there's always some sleep to be lost.
That's true.
So do you want us to go ahead and start?
You bet.
All right. Well, Jenny and I are really excited to be here. I'm Shannon Dill. I'm with University of Maryland Extension. I'm based in Talbot County, and I'm the Extension educator there.
And I'm Jenny Rhodes, and just like Shannon, I work for the University of Maryland Extension and the Extension educator in Talbot County.
So Jenny and I have been co-chairs of the Mid-Atlantic Women in Ag Network for a little over 7 years. We've been doing Women in Ag programming for over 10 at this point, and we're in neighboring counties, and we've teamed up and excited to talk about the Wednesday webinars that we started.
Okay, so let's get started. So we're going to talk about, so why, how did we get really to the Wednesday webinar? So Shannon and I started Annie's Project in 2008. So we've been doing this 10 years and really have gone to 3 states. And those women, they really wanted just to stay engaged. So all along we were thinking about how can we keep women engaged. And then we also have the annual Women in Ag Conference. It's a regional conference and encompasses 5 states. This will be our 18th year of that. And in 2014, we had 2 sessions that were just standing room only. And the women were pretty upset because they wanted to see the presentation. So, they were asking Shannon and I, how can we get this information? So that's kind of where we got to the Wednesday webinars. So we thought, well, what day is a good day? So we thought, okay, we're going to try hump day and we're going to have lunchtime. So maybe women that are working on the farm may come in for lunch. They could have lunch and watch. And our target audience is just not farm women, but also women that, may work for an ag business or may work for, government or banks or farm credit. So we want to make sure that we engage really all of those women. So we offer our Wednesday webinars the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of each month, of course, Eastern Standard Time. And we just say, grab your lunch, sit down wherever you might be, and approximately 30 to 40 minutes is the presentation. Then we always have time for question and answer, and that's going pretty well. And just like in Annie's Project and our Women in Ag, we are covering the 5 areas of risk management. So we have marketing risk, which includes a lot of social media, legal risk, human risk, production risk, and financial risk. Just all very important. And these are all archived on our website. So they're all broken out. So if you want to go back and see them, you can listen live or you can go back and view all those. 2 years in, we created a webinar BMPs, Best Management Practices, just to get everyone really on the same line, you know, because we had different people that might be hosting, different people that were teaching. So kind of, you know, so everybody would know exactly, you know, what they needed to do. Our presenters can be from the University of Maryland, University of Delaware, USDA, and kind of that list goes on and on. But we've had some really great presenters covering a variety of topics. So again, you know, it was really just to promote, to continue the and extend the risk management education real year round, and help these women and men to connect. And really the people that can't, for the women that couldn't be at the, you know, conference, because of, we have some of a lot of our conferences are in the winter time, and if people have greenhouses, you know, they're getting geared up, or, you know, a lot of women have children issues and these kind of things. So it really works well that we can bring all of these, really all these women together. And then I talked a little bit about our process of the pre-webinar, getting everybody, you know, whoever's going to be hosting, who's going to be teaching, you know, what are the things we have to do during the webinar. So it's really important. And then post-webinar, and it's worked very well. So technology, we have used a lot of technology, and some of that technology has seemed to change, but really, you know, Facebook is really, we do a lot on Facebook with our Women in Ag. And then personally, you know, we share things, trying to get, you know, more people involved in the Women in Ag. We have listservs, we use MailChimp, we use eExtension, our University of Maryland calendars, and then certainly we ask all of our partners really to share. Eventbrite is our registration. We love Eventbrite. We use it for a lot of different things, but the best thing about Eventbrite is that we can collect a lot of demographic information. Shannon will share that in a few minutes, and email. So we've got all that information right there, and then we can, you know, use that with MailChimp to get other information out. And the nice thing about Eventbrite too, you know, we can set it so it can send notifications before, as it starts, and then follow up. So if you missed today's Wednesday webinar, here's the link to go and find it. So we want to keep those people really engaged. One of the toughest things that has happened to us is, you know, universities change license with software. So we were using Adobe Connect, worked very well, had that all down pat, and all of a sudden, nope, we're not using that anymore. So now we're using WebEx. So we have transferred to that. And then we record everything, like I said, and everything is archived on our website, but it's also on YouTube. And then evaluation, the university, we use Qualtrics. We use that for quite a lot of things, but it certainly has worked very well. So it's out there, you know, we're trying to, you know, get involved. Mid-Atlantic Women, we also, you know, we have a Twitter page, and some, you know, other things. We've done some things on Instagram, but these are mostly the ones that we use for Women in Ag. So I will turn it over to Shannon now.
Okay, so I just wanted to share with you some of the numbers, and I don't think we ever expected to increase or to continue. I don't know what we thought when we got started, but we try to have at least 2 webinars a month, and you'll see we started in the spring of 2014. That year we had 16 webinars, 243 registrants, and then this middle column, unique registrants, we go through and pull out the duplicate or multiple registrations. So what you can see there at the bottom, as far as totals, we've had 105 webinars in total. We've had almost 8,000 registrants, and we've had 2,000 unique registrants. So people are registering for 2 to 3 webinars each time they go to the page. And I'll talk a little bit about why we think that is in a little bit. So we also have started with YouTube in 2015. We started uploading all of the webinar sessions onto YouTube so we could measure it. It has some great analytics, so I can count the number of views it has had, and that video is embedded into our website. So if they watch from the extension website, we're still counting that number on YouTube. And then the watch time, you can see, I mean, we're pretty pleased with that because we realize some of our webinars are long. I mean, 30 to 45 minutes. So I feel like we are capturing people and keeping their interest. So when you divide it out, it's almost a little over 1,300 hours of actual watch time. Also using Google Analytics, we have the top 5 videos as far as watch time. We can also look at the top 5, on views, and these numbers have been able to really help us moving forward and in our annual reviews talking about the webinars. So the next slide is about registration information, and Jenny was mentioning, I think, there we go, the analytics from Eventbrite. This is 2014 to 2017's registration summary, and we use Eventbrite to get the webinars are free, but we do ask some questions related to demographics, to beginning, are they beginning farmers, so we can start getting data on the registrants. We were really surprised when we started running these numbers and doing some of our annual reports that we've reached 19 countries, about 113 people that way. We've had registration in every state and DC except Rhode Island. So I don't know if there's any Rhode Island people listening, residents listening, but we'd love for you to register for one of our webinars. But you can see the majority are from Maryland. Almost 2,000 are from Maryland. And again, these are bulk reports, not people who register, this is how many times they've registered. This is not per registrant as far as these charts go. So, of course, being good extension faculty, one of the things, we actually had gotten a grant for the webinars, and we realized that at the end of 2015, so we'd already run all of 14's webinars and all of 15's, that we